The moon of Kepler 442b was a dead place. No trees, no rivers, no birds in the sky. Just endless gray rock and dust that stretched to the horizon. The only color came from the pale orange glow of the distant sun and the cold blue light of the gas giant that hung in the sky like a giant eye. Tay had lived here alone for 2 years. He was a maintenance engineer, one of the few humans willing to work at the abandoned mining outpost on the edge of known space. The pay was good. The solitude was better. After losing his wife Una 3 years ago, he did not want to be around people anymore. Their kind words hurt more than their silence. Their pity felt like knives in his chest. So he came here, to this dead moon, where no one could reach him, where he could work and sleep and forget. The outpost was small, just a handful of metal buildings connected by covered walkways. There was a control room, a sleeping quarters, a small kitchen, and a workshop full of tools and spare parts. Tay spent most of his days checking the atmospheric processors that kept the air breathable for future mining operations. It was boring work, but he liked boring. Boring meant no surprises, no pain. That night, everything changed. Tay was eating his dinner alone when he felt the ground shake. The vibration was strong enough to knock his water cup off the table. He stood up quickly, his heart beating fast. Earthquakes were not common on this moon. In 2 years, he had never felt one. He ran to the window and looked outside. At first, he saw nothing but darkness. Then he noticed a strange glow coming from the canyon to the east. It was orange and flickering, like fire. Something had crashed. Tay knew he should report it to the main colony. That was the protocol. But the solar storm had knocked out long-range communications 3 days ago. He was alone, and whatever had fallen from the sky was less than 2 kilometers away. He put on his environmental suit and grabbed a flashlight. The air outside was thin and cold, barely breathable even with the processors running. His boots crunched on the gray dust as he walked toward the canyon. The crash site was worse than he expected. A deep trench had been carved into the ground, stretching for hundreds of meters. At the end of the trench sat a twisted piece of metal that had once been some kind of spacecraft. It was small, maybe the size of a shuttle, but its design was like nothing Tay had ever seen. The metal was black and smooth, with no visible seams or windows. Strange symbols were burned into its surface. This was not human technology. Tay felt fear crawl up his spine. He had heard stories about alien species in this part of the galaxy. Most of them were peaceful traders or scientists. But some were dangerous. Very dangerous. He should go back. He should wait for help. But then he heard the sound. It was a low, pained moan coming from inside the wreckage. Something was alive in there. Tay moved closer. He found an opening in the hull where the metal had been torn apart by the impact. He pointed his flashlight inside and saw her. She was huge, at least 7 feet tall, even curled up on the floor. Her body was covered in black scales that shimmered like oil in the light. She had 6 limbs, 4 legs, and 2 arms, and a long tail that wrapped around her body. Her face was reptilian, with a long snout and rows of small, sharp teeth. But it was her eyes that made Tay stop breathing. They were amber, like honey in sunlight, and they were filled with pain and fear and something else. Something that looked like hope. The creature was injured. Badly. Dark blood pooled beneath her body. One of her arms hung at a wrong angle, clearly broken. But what caught Tay's attention most was her abdomen. It was swollen and round. She was pregnant. She saw Tay and made a sound. Not a growl or a hiss, but a soft, pleading whimper. She pressed her good arm against her belly, protecting whatever life grew inside her. Tay's mind screamed at him to run. His survival training told him this creature was a predator. The database in his suit identified her species as Veth, classified as highly dangerous. Colonies had been destroyed by creatures like her, but Tay did not see a monster. He saw a mother. He thought of Yuna. She had been pregnant once, just for a few months, before the accident took everything from them. He remembered how she would hold her belly and smile, talking to the baby that would never be born. He remembered the look in her eyes when she spoke about their future. This creature had that same look. Tay made his decision. He would help her. He knelt down slowly, making himself small and unthreatening. He spoke in a soft voice, even though he knew she could not understand him. "It is okay," he said in Korean. "I will not hurt you. I'm going to help." The creature watched him with those amber eyes. She did not attack. She did not even move. She just watched, waiting to see what this strange small being would do. Tay examined her wounds. The bleeding was serious, but not fatal if he could stop it soon. The broken arm was a bigger problem. He had no idea how to set alien bones. But he had medical supplies at the outpost. He had bandages and medicine and a small surgical kit. It was not much, but it was something. The hardest part was moving her. She was heavy, much heavier than she looked. Tay found a piece of flat metal from the wreckage and managed to slide it under her body. Then he began to drag her, slowly, painfully, across the rocky ground toward his outpost. It took him 3 hours. By the end, his arms were shaking and his back was screaming in pain. But he did not stop. Every time he wanted to give up, he looked at those amber eyes and kept going. When they finally reached the outpost, Tay was ready to collapse. He managed to drag her into the workshop, the only room big enough to hold her. He laid out blankets on the floor and rolled her onto them as gently as he could. She was barely conscious now. The journey had taken the last of her strength. But as Tay stood up to get his medical supplies, he felt something grab his arm. It was her hand. Her clawed, scaled hand wrapped around his wrist. But she did not squeeze. She did not try to hurt him. She just held on, like a drowning person holding onto a rope. Tay looked down at her. Her eyes were half closed, but she was looking at him. And in that moment, something passed between them. Not words, not thoughts, just understanding. She was thanking him. She was trusting him with her life and the lives of her unborn children. Tay felt tears burn in his eyes. He had not cried since Yuna died. He had built walls around his heart so thick that nothing could get through. But this dying alien mother, this creature that the galaxy called a monster, had found a crack in those walls. He placed his other hand over hers and squeezed gently. "I will take care of you," he whispered. "I promise." Her eyes closed and her grip relaxed. But she did not let go. Even in sleep, she held on to the human who had shown her kindness in her darkest hour. Outside, the cold wind howled across the dead moon. But inside the small outpost, something new was beginning. Something that would change the galaxy forever. Tay did not know it yet, but his life would never be the same. Tay did not sleep that night. He sat beside the alien creature, watching her breathe, checking her wounds, and trying to keep her alive. Her blood was dark purple, almost black, and it did not clot the way human blood did. He had to use heat to seal the wounds, pressing a hot metal tool against her scales until the bleeding stopped. She groaned in pain but did not wake up. By morning, she was stable. Her breathing was steady, and the color had returned to her scales. Tay allowed himself to feel a small moment of hope. Maybe she would survive. Maybe he had not failed. He gave her water by dripping it slowly into her mouth. She swallowed without opening her eyes. He crushed some protein tablets and mixed them with water, feeding her the paste with his fingers. It was like caring for a sick child, except this child weighed several hundred kilograms and had claws that could tear through metal. 2 days passed. The creature, whom Tay had started calling Mama in his mind, grew stronger. She opened her eyes more often now. She watched him move around the workshop, following him with those amber eyes. She never tried to attack him. She never even bared her teeth. She just watched, and sometimes she made a soft rumbling sound in her chest. Tay thought it might be her way of saying thank you. On the third day, everything changed again. Tay woke up to sounds of distress. Mama was moving, her body twisting and shaking on the blankets. Her eyes were wide with fear and pain. She was making loud, desperate sounds that echoed off the metal walls. Tay ran to her side. At first, he thought her wounds had opened again. But then he saw what was really happening. She was giving birth. Tay had never seen anything like it. Her body convulsed violently. Her claws scraped against the floor, leaving deep marks in the metal. She roared, a sound so loud that it hurt his ears. The whole outpost seemed to shake with her pain. He should have run away. Any sane person would have run away. This was not his fight. This was not his problem. She was an alien, a predator, a creature from a species that had killed humans before. But Tay did not run. Instead, he knelt beside her and took her hand. Her claws wrapped around his arm, squeezing hard enough to leave bruises. But he did not pull away. He held on and started talking to her in Korean, the same way he used to talk to Yuna when she was scared. "It is okay," he said, his voice calm and steady even though his heart was pounding. "You are strong. You can do this. I am here with you. I am not going anywhere." She looked at him with those amber eyes, and he saw something change in them. The wild fear faded, replaced by something like trust. She squeezed his hand harder, and Tay squeezed back. The birth lasted for hours. Tay lost track of time. All he knew was the sound of her cries, the feeling of her hand in his, and the desperate need to help her through this. He brought her water. He wiped the sweat from her scales. He whispered words of comfort that she could not understand but seemed to feel anyway. Finally, near midnight, the first hatchling emerged. It was small, about the size of a large cat, covered in wet membrane and dark fluid. Tay used a clean cloth to wipe it off, revealing scales of silver and blue that glittered in the dim light. The hatchling made a tiny sound, almost like a kitten, and opened its eyes. They were the same amber color as its mother's. Before Tay could even catch his breath, the second hatchling came. This one was different. Its scales were deep crimson, the color of blood and fire. It was slightly larger than its sibling, and when it opened its eyes, they glowed with a fierce golden light. Mama looked at her children. She reached out with a trembling hand and touched each of them gently. Then she looked at Tay, and something passed between them. Not words, but understanding, gratitude, love. But something was wrong. Tay noticed that Mama's breathing was getting weaker. Her eyes were losing their brightness. The birth had taken too much from her. Her internal injuries from the crash, the ones Tay could not see or treat, were finally catching up to her. She was dying. Tay felt panic rise in his chest. He grabbed his medical kit and tried to find something, anything, that could help. But he was just a maintenance engineer. He was not a doctor. He did not know how to save her. Mama made a soft sound, and Tay stopped. He looked at her, and he saw that she knew. She knew she was dying, and she had accepted it. But there was something she needed to do first. She reached out and took Tay's hand. Then, slowly, painfully, she pressed her forehead against his. The moment their skin touched, Tay felt something flood into his mind. It was not words or pictures. It was pure emotion. Love for her children. Gratitude for the strange creature who had saved her. Hope that her babies would survive. And underneath it all, a desperate plea. Take care of them. Please. They are all that matters now. Tay felt tears stream down his face. He nodded, unable to speak, unable to do anything except accept the weight of her trust. Mama pulled back. She looked at her hatchlings one last time, her amber eyes soft with love. Then she closed her eyes and let out a long, slow breath. She did not breathe again. Tay sat there for a long time, holding her cold hand, crying for a creature he had known for only 3 days. He cried for her children who would never know their mother. He cried for Yuna and the baby they never had. He cried for all the pain and loneliness he had carried for so long. A small sound brought him back to reality. The hatchlings had crawled away from their mother's body. They were moving toward Tay, their tiny legs wobbling with each step. They climbed over the blankets, over Tay's legs, and pressed themselves against his chest. Tay looked down at them in shock. They should have stayed with their mother. They should have mourned her, or feared the human who smelled different and looked different from everything they knew. But instead, they curled against him, their small bodies warm and soft, their tiny hearts beating fast. They had imprinted on him. Tay had read about this in the database. Some species, when they are born, will bond with the first living creature they see. The bond is for life, unbreakable, absolute. These two hatchlings, these children of a dying mother, had chosen him, not because he was their species, not because he looked like them or sounded like them, but because he had been there, because he had held their mother's hand when she was afraid, because he had shown kindness when he had every reason to run away. Tay looked down at the small creatures against his chest. The silver-blue one was already falling asleep, its breath slow and peaceful. The crimson one was watching him with those golden eyes, curious and unafraid. "Okay," Tay whispered, his voice breaking. "Okay, I will take care of you. Both of you. I promise." He did not know how he would do it. He did not know how to raise alien predators. He did not know if they would survive, or if he would survive trying to raise them. But he had made a promise to a dying mother, and he would not break it. He wrapped his arms around the hatchlings and held them close. Outside, the dead moon was silent and cold. But inside the small outpost, a new family had been born. Tay named them the next morning. The silver-blue one he called Nuri, which meant world in Korean. The crimson one he called Barim, which meant wind. They were not human names for human children, but they were his children now, and he would give them names that meant something. As the pale sun rose over the gray horizon, Tay looked at his new family and felt something he had not felt in 3 years. Hope. The weeks that followed were the hardest of Tay's life. Raising 2 alien hatchlings was nothing like raising human children. For one thing, they grew fast. Much faster than any creature Tay had ever seen. In just 10 days, Nuri and Barim went from the size of cats to the size of large dogs. Their scales hardened, their claws grew sharp, and their teeth became long and dangerous. But they were still babies. They played like puppies, tumbling over each other and chasing anything that moved. They made happy chirping sounds when Tay came near and sad whining sounds when he left the room. They slept curled together in a pile of blankets, and every night they waited for Tay to lie down with them before closing their eyes. Feeding them was a challenge. Tay tried everything in his supplies: protein bars, dried meat, nutrient paste. They turned their noses up at all of it. Finally, in desperation, he gave them raw synthetic meat from the emergency supplies. They devoured it in seconds and looked at him with big eyes, asking for more. After that, Tay spent hours every day preparing food for them. As they grew bigger, they needed more. He had to request extra supplies from the automated delivery system, making up excuses about equipment failures and storage problems. He knew he could not hide them forever, but he was not ready to face that truth yet. The bond between them grew stronger every day. Tay could feel their emotions now, like a soft whisper in the back of his mind. When Nuri was happy, Tay felt warmth in his chest. When Barim was scared, Tay felt a chill down his spine. And when they were hungry, his own stomach would growl in sympathy. He taught them simple commands: sit, stay, Come. They learned faster than any dog or cat. Within a week, they understood dozens of Korean words. They could not speak, but they communicated in other ways. A tilt of the head meant curiosity. A low rumble meant contentment. A high-pitched chirp meant excitement. 3 weeks after the birth, Nuri and Barum were the size of wolves. Their shoulders reached Tae's waist, and their tails were longer than his arm. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, all muscle and scale and predator grace. But when they looked at Tae, their eyes were soft with love. Then the visitors came. Tae was feeding the hatchlings when his communication system crackled to life. The solar storm had finally passed, and long-range communication was restored. A voice came through the speaker, clear and professional. Outpost 7, this is Colony Central. We detected an unidentified crash in your sector 3 weeks ago. A research team is being dispatched to investigate. 6 hours. Tae's blood went cold. He looked at Nuri and Barum, who were watching him with curious eyes. They could sense his fear through the bond, and they moved closer to him, pressing against his legs. 6 hours. He had 6 hours to figure out what to do. He thought about running. He could take the hatchlings into the canyons, hide in the caves until the research team left. But that was not a long-term solution. Eventually, someone would find them. Eventually, he would have to face the truth. So he made a decision. He would not hide. He would not run. He would stand his ground and protect his family. The research team arrived exactly on time. There were 2 of them. The first was a woman named Hana. She was a xenobiologist, a scientist who studied alien life forms. She had kind eyes and a gentle voice, and when she saw the hatchlings, her face lit up with wonder instead of fear. The second was a man named Diane. He was a security officer, tall and muscular, with a face like stone. He worked for the corporation that owned the mining colonies, and his job was to protect their assets. When he saw Nuri and Barum, his hand went straight to his weapon. "What the hell is this?" Do-hyun demanded. "You have Veth in your outpost? Do you have any idea how dangerous they are?" Tae stepped between the security officer and his hatchlings. "They are not dangerous. They are just babies. Babies that will grow into killing machines," Do-hyun said. "The Veth have destroyed entire colonies. They are classified as apex predators. Shoot on sight. These 2 have never hurt anyone," Tae said. "Their mother crashed here. She was dying. I helped her give birth, and then she died. The hatchlings imprinted on me. They think I am their father." Hana stepped forward, her eyes wide with fascination. "Imprinting? That is incredibly rare. The bond between a Veth and their chosen protector is legendary. There are stories about it in ancient texts, but no human has ever witnessed it firsthand." "It does not matter," Do-hyun said. "Protocol is clear. All Veth must be eliminated. They are too dangerous to exist." Nuri and Barum had been watching the argument with growing unease. They could feel Tae's stress through the bond, and they did not like the way Do-hyun was looking at them. When the security officer took a step forward, both hatchlings rose to their full height and let out low, rumbling growls. They were warning him. "Stay back. Do not threaten our father." Do-hyun froze. His hand tightened on his weapon. "See? They are aggressive. They are already showing predator behavior. They are protecting me," Tae said. "Because they love me. Because I am their family." He turned to face the hatchlings and spoke in a calm voice. "Nuri, Barum, sit." Both hatchlings immediately sat down. Their growls stopped. They looked at Tae with trusting eyes, waiting for his next command. Hana gasped. "They obey you. They actually obey you. This is remarkable. They trust me," Tae said. "And I trust them. They will not hurt anyone unless I tell them to. And I will never tell them to hurt anyone who does not deserve it." Do-hyun shook his head. This is insane. You have bonded with monsters. Do you understand what the corporation will do when they find out? They are not monsters, Tay said quietly. They are my children. The room was silent. Hannah looked at Tay with something like respect in her eyes. Dohin looked at him like he had lost his mind. And Nuri and Baram just sat there, watching, waiting, trusting their father to protect them. Dayan stepped back and pulled out his communication device. I have to report this. The corporation will send a team. They will take the creatures, and probably you too. You know that, right? Tay nodded. He knew. He had known from the beginning that this moment would come. But he did not regret his choices. He had saved a dying mother. He had raised her children with love. And he would fight to protect them, no matter what came next. Report whatever you need to report, Tay said. But know this. Anyone who tries to hurt my children will have to go through me first. Don shook his head and walked out of the room to make his call. Hannah stayed behind, studying Nori and Baram with wonder in her eyes. You know, she said softly, there are rumors about the Veth, stories that the official reports do not tell. Some researchers believe they are not mindless killers at all. They believe the Veth are intelligent, maybe even sentient. And the reason they attack colonies is because the colonies attacked them first. Tay looked at her. Do you believe that? Hannah met his eyes. I believe that any species capable of this kind of bond, this kind of love, cannot be simply monsters. She reached out slowly and touched Nuri's head. The hatchling did not flinch. Instead, she leaned into the touch, making a soft purring sound. Hannah smiled. I think you have discovered something important here, Tay. Something that could change everything we know about the Veth. Outside, the cold wind howled across the dead moon. Inside, a human, 2 alien hatchlings, and a scientist shared a moment of quiet understanding. But the storm was coming. And Tay knew that the real fight was just beginning. 1 month had passed since the birth. Nuri and Baram were no longer small. They stood nearly 8 feet tall on their hind legs, their bodies packed with muscle and covered in scales that gleamed like armor. Their claws could tear through metal. Their teeth could crush bone. They were apex predators in every sense of the word. But to Tay, they were still his babies. Every morning, they would greet him with happy chirps and gentle nudges. Every night, they would curl around him while he slept, their massive bodies forming a protective circle. They played games with him, chasing balls and wrestling with old blankets. They learned new words every day, and their ability to understand human speech had grown remarkable. They were also fiercely loyal. When Tay was sad, they would press their heads against him and make soft, comforting sounds. When he was sick with a cold for 3 days, they refused to leave his side, bringing him water and food with clumsy but loving care. They were his family, his children, his reason to keep going. But the galaxy did not see them that way. Hannah had warned Tay in secret. The corporation had classified the situation as a level 1 threat. A strike team was being assembled, 12 heavily armed soldiers with orders to eliminate the Veth and detain Tay for violating xenofauna containment laws. They would arrive in 3 days. You have to run, Hannah said. Take them into the canyons. Hide until I can figure out a way to help you. Tay looked at her with tired eyes. Why are you helping me? You could lose your job. You could go to prison. Hannah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, because I found something. Something the corporation has been hiding for decades. She pulled out a datapad and showed him files marked classified. The Veth are not mindless predators. They are an ancient sentient species, one of the oldest in the galaxy. They have language, culture, and family bonds that last for generations. Tay felt his heart stop. Then why are they classified as dangerous? Because of this. Hannah showed him a map of the galaxy. A small region was highlighted in red. The Veth homeworld. It sits on the largest deposit of rare minerals ever discovered. Minerals worth more money than most governments have. The corporation wanted those minerals. So they started a war. They attacked Veth colonies, killed their children, and drove them from their homes. The Veth fought back. They defended themselves. And the corporation called them monsters to justify wiping them out. Tay felt rage burn in his chest. Everything he had been told was a lie. The Veth were not the enemy. They were victims. Nori and Barum, he whispered. Their mother. She was not running from danger. She was running from genocide. Hannah nodded. And now the corporation wants to finish what they started. If they find out that a human is bonded with Veth hatchlings, it ruins their whole story. It proves that the Veth are not mindless killers. It proves that they can be peaceful, loving, even loyal. Tay looked at his children. They were watching him with those beautiful amber and golden eyes, sensing his distress through the bond. They did not understand the politics or the greed. They only understood that their father was upset and they wanted to help. He made his decision. I will not let them take my children, he said. I will not let them die for corporate profits. Hannah gave him supplies and a map of the canyon system. There were caves deep underground where the strike team's sensors could not reach. If Tay could get there, he might be able to hide long enough for Hannah to expose the truth. The next morning, before the sun rose, Tay packed everything he could carry. Food, water, medical supplies, and a small camera to record evidence. He woke Nuri and Barum with gentle touches, and they followed him without question. The journey into the canyons was hard. The terrain was rough, full of sharp rocks and deep cracks. Toxic geysers shot steam into the air without warning. The temperature dropped as they went deeper, and Tay's breath came out in white clouds, but Nuri and Barum stayed close. They used their powerful bodies to clear paths through the rocks. They carried supplies on their backs when Tay grew tired. They wrapped around him at night to keep him warm while the freezing wind howled above. On the second day, the strike team arrived. Tay heard them before he saw them. The sound of engines echoed through the canyon, followed by shouting voices and barking commands. He pushed himself to move faster, but his human body could not keep up with the pace. Then the rock slide happened. A geyser erupted beneath a cliff wall, sending tons of stone tumbling down into the canyon. Tay had no time to react. He saw the shadow of falling rocks above him and knew he was going to die. But Nuri was faster. She threw herself over Tay, covering his body with hers. The rocks crashed down on her back, bouncing off her armored scales. She roared in pain but did not move until every last stone had fallen. When it was over, Tay looked up at his daughter. Her scales were cracked and bleeding. One of her legs was badly bruised. But she was alive, and she had saved him. Nori, he whispered, tears streaming down his face. You saved me. She made a soft sound and pressed her head against his chest. Through the bond, he felt her love. Simple and pure. She would die for him. That was not even a question in her mind. Maram helped Tay to his feet. Together, the three of them limped toward the caves. The strike team was close now. Tay could hear their footsteps, their voices, their weapons clicking as they prepared for battle. They reached the cave just as the sun was setting. It was dark and cold inside, but it was safe. The rock walls were thick enough to block sensors. The entrance was narrow enough that only one person could enter at a time. Tay collapsed against the wall, exhausted and bleeding from dozens of small cuts. Nuri and Barum settled on either side of him, their massive bodies blocking the entrance. They were ready to fight. They were ready to die. Hours passed. The sounds of the strike team grew louder, then closer. Flashlights appeared at the mouth of the cave. Voices shouted commands. "We know you are in there. Come out with your hands up. Leave the creatures behind and you will not be harmed." Tay looked at his children. They looked back at him with calm, steady eyes. They were not afraid. They trusted him completely. He thought about surrendering. He thought about giving himself up to save them. But he knew that would not work. The moment he was out of the way, the soldiers would kill Nuri and Barum. They would shoot them like animals and call it justice. So he stayed. And he whispered to his children the only thing he could say: "Protect yourselves. Run. Find somewhere safe." Nuri and Barum looked at each other. Then they looked at their father. And through the bond, Tay felt their answer: "No. We stay with you. We protect you. Always." The first soldier appeared at the cave entrance. His weapon was raised, his finger on the trigger. Behind him, more soldiers waited, ready to storm in. Nuri rose to her full height. Barum did the same. They stood side by side, their scales gleaming in the dim light, their eyes burning with fierce determination. They were no longer frightened children. They were apex predators, ready to defend their father against any threat. The soldier hesitated. For the first time, he looked at them not as targets, but as something more. Something powerful. Something terrifying. And then the real fight began. The battle in the cave was unlike anything the soldiers had expected. They came in ready to fight monsters. They found something else entirely. Nuri moved first. She lunged at the lead soldier with terrifying speed, her claws flashing in the dim light. But she did not slash. She did not kill. Instead, she knocked the weapon from his hands with one precise strike and pushed him back with her shoulder. He flew through the air and landed hard on the stone floor, stunned but alive. Barum followed. He circled around the second group of soldiers, using his crimson scales to draw their attention. When they fired at him, he dodged with impossible grace, moving like wind through the narrow passages. Then he struck, not with teeth or claws, but with his tail. He swept their legs out from under them, sending them crashing to the ground. Their weapons scattered across the cave floor. More soldiers poured in. Nuri and Barum worked together like they had trained for this their whole lives. They disarmed. They knocked down. They incapacitated. But they did not kill. Not once. Not even when they had the chance, because Tay had never told them to kill. And they obeyed their father. One soldier managed to get a shot off. The energy blast hit Barum in the shoulder, burning through his scales. He roared in pain, a sound that shook the walls of the cave. For a moment, his golden eyes flashed with rage, and his claws rose toward the man who had hurt him. "Barum, no!" Tay shouted. "Do not hurt him. Please!" Barum froze. The rage in his eyes faded, replaced by something softer. He looked at Tay, and through the bond, Tay felt his confusion. Why should he spare someone who had tried to kill him? Why should he show mercy to an enemy? But Tay sent back his own feelings. Love, compassion, the belief that killing would not solve anything. The hope that they could prove they were better than the violence others expected from them. Barum lowered his claws. He stepped back from the wounded soldier and took his place beside Nuri. Together, they stood in front of Tay, breathing hard, bleeding from their wounds, but victorious. 12 soldiers lay on the cave floor. All of them were alive. All of them were disarmed. And all of them were staring at the two Veth with a mixture of fear and something else. Wonder. Then the lights came. A bright beam cut through the darkness of the cave entrance. Tay raised his hand to shield his eyes and saw Hana standing there with a camera drone floating beside her. The drone's light was blinking red. It was broadcasting live. "Everyone in the galaxy is watching this right now," Hana said, her voice clear and strong. "Every colony, every station, every news network. They are seeing what I am seeing. Two Veth, classified as the most dangerous predators in known space, defending a human with their lives. And not killing a single person. The soldiers looked at each other. Some of them were already getting to their feet, backing away slowly. They knew what this meant. The whole galaxy was watching. Every action they took from this point would be recorded. Hannah stepped into the cave and stood beside Tay. She looked at Nuri and Baram with soft eyes. "I have released all the classified files," she said. "The truth about the Veth, the war the corporation started, the genocide they tried to hide. People are already demanding answers. Some are demanding justice." Tay felt tears stream down his face. After everything, after all the running and fighting and fear, someone had finally listened. Someone had finally seen the truth. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," Hannah said with a small smile, "we show them who the real monsters are." The weeks that followed were chaos. News of Tay and his Veth children spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Videos of the cave fight were viewed billions of times. Images of Nuri and Baram protecting Tay, while sparing the soldiers, became symbols of something powerful. The corporation tried to fight back. They called it propaganda. They called Tay a criminal. They called the Veth a continuing threat. But the evidence was too strong. Hannah's files proved decades of lies and murder. Survivors from destroyed Veth colonies came forward with their own stories. Scientists who had studied the Veth in secret spoke out about their intelligence and their culture. And through it all, Tay stood firm. He gave interviews. He told his story. He introduced Nuri and Baram to the galaxy, showing them not as monsters, but as what they truly were. His children died 6 months later. Tay stood before the Galactic Council. It was a massive chamber filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds. Cameras floated everywhere, broadcasting to every corner of known space. Nuri and Baram stood beside him. They had grown even larger now, nearly 10 feet tall when standing straight. Their scales gleamed under the lights, and their eyes were calm and steady. They did not look like predators. They looked like proud children standing beside their father. The council speaker, an elderly woman with white hair and sharp eyes, looked down at them from her elevated seat. "You have petitioned this council for the reclassification of the species known as Veth," she said, "and for legal guardianship of the 2 individuals beside you. Do you understand the weight of what you are asking?" Tay nodded. "I do. The Veth have been classified as dangerous for over 50 years. The speaker continued. "They have been blamed for the deaths of thousands. Many in this chamber believe they should be eliminated entirely. What do you say to them?" Tay took a deep breath. He looked at Nuri, then at Baram. They both pressed their heads against him gently, sending waves of love and support through the bond. Then he turned back to the council and spoke. "I am not a soldier. I am not a politician. I am just a man who was alone on a dead moon, trying to forget the family he had lost. And then a dying mother crashed near my home, and she asked me to save her children." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I could have walked away. I could have let her die alone. I could have killed her children when they were born. That is what the rules said I should do. That is what everyone expected me to do." He looked at the council members, meeting their eyes one by one. "But I did not, because I saw something in that dying mother that I recognized. I saw love. I saw fear. I saw a parent who would do anything to protect their children. She was not a monster. She was a mother. And her children are not monsters either. They are kind. They are loyal. They are capable of love and mercy and sacrifice." He placed his hands on Nuri and Baram's heads. "These 2 have saved my life more than once. They have never hurt anyone who did not threaten them first. And when they had every right to kill, they chose to spare. Because I asked them to. Because they trust me. Because they love me." His voice grew stronger. Humanity is not special because we are strong. We are special because we are capable of compassion. We see the alien, the stranger, the creature that looks nothing like us, and we have the ability to choose kindness. That is what makes us human. And I believe that choice, that capacity for love, can change the galaxy. He stepped forward, his eyes burning with conviction. I am asking this council to see what I see, to recognize that the Veth are not our enemies. They are a species that was wronged, attacked, and driven to the edge of extinction. They deserve protection. They deserve justice. And these two, Nuri and Barem, deserve a father who will love them and care for them for the rest of their lives. The chamber was silent. Then, slowly, the speaker nodded. This council will take your words under consideration. 3 days later, the decision was announced. The Veth were reclassified as a protected sentient species. The corporation responsible for the genocide was ordered to pay reparations. And Tay was granted full legal guardianship of Nuri and Barham. They had won. 1 year later, Tay stood on a green hill overlooking a valley filled with wildflowers. It was a new world, a frontier colony where people came to start fresh. The sky was blue. The air was sweet. And for the first time in years, Tay felt truly at peace. Nuri and Barham raced through the grass below him, chasing each other like the children they still were at heart. Their scales flashed in the sunlight, silver and crimson against the endless green dot. Tay watched them and smiled. He had lost one family. The pain of that loss would never fully heal. But in saving a dying mother and raising her children, he had found something he thought was gone forever. Love, purpose, hope. He had saved them. And in return, they had saved him. As the sun set over the valley, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Tay called out to his children, "Nuri, Barham, come home. Dinner is ready." 2 massive shapes bounded up the hill toward him, their eyes bright with joy. They tackled him gently, knocking him into the soft grass, and covered him with happy chirps and affectionate nudges. Tay laughed. A real laugh, full and warm, the kind he had not made in years. He was home. And so were they,